When nature shows its true colors, the soul shivers, and something similar happened with Flight 571. This plane crashed on a snowy hill, thousands of feet above the ground, and the passengers who survived this crash had only one option to save themselves: to eat the flesh of their own family members and friends. The story of Flight 571. You may call it the world's biggest miracle or the biggest cruelty in human history, but your soul will shivers after hearing this story. This heart-wrenching story begins on October 12, 1972, a European flight from South America takes off, which has to reach Santiago, the capital of Chile. Rugby players are sitting in this plane and their family members, relatives and friends are going to watch their match. There are a total of 45 passengers in this plane, including 9 crew members. This flight will reach its destination in 3 hours, but on the way it will have to cross the Andes mountain ranges. But unfortunately, the weather is bad later on, so this flight is landed in Mendoza, Argentina. This flight stays there overnight and is ready to take off the next day, on October 13th. But the problem is that the weather is still bad, but the good thing is that the pilot of this flight has already flown 29 times on this route. Because of this, he has a complete idea of how to cross these Andes mountains. Due to the pilot's confidence, this flight takes off again on October 13th at 2:10 p.m. From here, only 1 hour is left to reach Santiago. And the pilot is confident that after 1 hour he will reach Santiago safely. This plane was flying at an altitude of about 18,000 feet and was slowly crossing the Andes mountains, but later the weather worsened, due to which the visibility decreased further and the pilot could not see anything ahead. If the weather was clear, then the pilot would have got an idea of where the plane was by looking at the surrounding hills. But at this time the pilot is dependent only on the instruments of the plane. Now, because the pilot knew that he would reach Santiago in 1 hour, that is why he kept estimating his location roughly, and after an hour, when he felt that he had crossed the Andes mountains, he asked the ATC at Santiago Airport for permission to land the plane. ATC asked whether you have crossed the Andes mountains. The pilot said yes, they have crossed the Andes mountains. ATC was also dependent on the location given by the pilot, so ATC gave permission to land the plane, and told the pilot to bring the plane to an altitude of 11,500 feet. At 3:20 p.m., the pilot started reducing the altitude of the plane slowly. As soon as the plane comes down, the pilot sees that the Andes mountains are still moving, and there is a very big rock in front. The pilot quickly tries to lift the plane up again, but it was too late now. While lifting the plane up, its rear part hits a hill and breaks apart. Due to the breaking of the rear part of the plane, the seats in the rear fly away in the air along with the passengers, and 3 passengers fly away in the air and die. In this collision, the right wing of the plane was also broken. Due to this, the plane becomes unbalanced and its other wing also hits the hill and breaks. Now only the front part of the plane was left, which hits the glacier below at a speed of 350 km per hour. The plane is completely destroyed. The pilot of the plane is killed instantly. Out of 45 people, 12 have died in this incident and 33 people are still alive. But most of them are in a very injured condition and they do not even know where they are at this time. This crashed plane is scattered on an unknown hill of Andes at a height of 3,570 meters from the ground. No one knows whether they will be able to escape from this hill or not. What has happened till now was just a small trailer. The real story of this flight will start now. You cannot even imagine what is going to happen to them in the future. These deserted Andes hills are going to wreak havoc on them. Knowing their future story will send shivers down your spine. One of the injured passengers was Nand Paradu, who had a head injury due to which he went into coma. The problem was that the sun was going to set soon and it was going to be evening, so the rescue team did not have much time to find them, and if by chance they were not rescued before it got dark, it would be impossible to spend the night on this snowy mountain because the temperature here reaches -30 degrees Celsius at night. Soon 4 ships were dispatched for rescue. These 4 ships searched the Andes mountains, but they did not find anything anywhere because the plane had crashed at a place where there was white snow and dense grass. And the plane was also white in color, so the rescue team was not able to guess the crash site when looking from above. It was night in no time and the rescue operation was postponed for the whole night. The surviving passengers were hoping that they could somehow spend the night and that someone would rescue them tomorrow. They made a shelter in the crashed plane and spent the night. This night was very terrible for them because they had to spend the night in -30 degrees Celsius. But they had a hope that someone would find them tomorrow. They somehow spent the night hoping that someone would save them. But 5 people could not survive this night and now the number of survivors decreased from 33 to 28. The next morning on October 14th, the search operation was restarted and 11 planes flew to find them. But the problem was that the crashed plane was not visible in the snowy mountains due to its white color. The rescue planes were flying over the survivors but they were not able to see them below. So the survivors tried to write SOS on the plane with lipstick to signal the rescue team. But they did not have enough lipstick to write SOS. So they made a big cross on the snow with their suitcases so that it could be clearly seen by the rescue team from the sky. That day 3 planes flew over them but unfortunately no one noticed them and this day also passed. The next day, October 15th, the situation was similar on that day too but the rescue team was unable to find them. Now these survivors had understood that they were in a very bad situation. It is not known when help will arrive, so they started making survival techniques with the things present in the plane. They were arranging water drop by melting snow in the sun, but they did not have many options for food. 3 days after the crash, on October 16th, Namo Parado wakes up from coma and as soon as he regains consciousness, he comes to know that his mother has died in this crash and his 19-year-old sister is seriously injured. Days are passing by, help is not being received, the food that was in the plane has also finished, the sunlight is reflecting from the snow and damaging their eyes. They had spent 8 days on this hill, enduring hunger, thirst and unbearable cold. Rescue planes arrive and fly over them. 6 days after the crash, Nundura's sister also loses the battle of life and dies. And after 8 days, the search operation is stopped because there is heavy snowfall in the month of October. Due to this, the search operation is postponed for 2 months. The officers thought that all the passengers would have died in these 8 days. Therefore, their dead bodies will be found and sent to their families after 2 months. Here the survivors found a radio in the wreckage of the plane. When the survivors turned on the radio, the news was being broadcast that the search operation of Flight 571 has been called off. This news shocked the survivors. Till now they had a hope of finding themselves, but now they were hearing the news of their own death on the radio. There was a ray of hope of finding them, but that too has been shattered. Now they know that death is certain here. Now either let the circumstances overpower you or face them bravely. They tore the seats of the plane and stuffed the cotton inside their clothes to save themselves from the cold. They wrapped the seat covers around their feet to make shoes to walk in the snow. The biggest problem was food. Now to stay alive, they had only one option. They did what no one has ever done in history. Just thinking about it makes the soul shudder. They decided to eat the dead bodies of their family members, relatives and friends who were lying in the snow. However, taking this decision was not at all easy for them. Days were passing by one and they did not have any plan to save themselves. He used to sleep inside the broken plane at night to avoid the cold, but 16 days after the crash, on October 29th, nature gave him another shock. He was sleeping at night and suddenly he came to know that a thick piece of snow was breaking off from the mountain and falling down. This avalanche came with such force that the huge amount of snow engulfed his broken plane. His plane was buried under the snow and snow had entered inside the plane as well. Due to which there was a shortage of oxygen for them and 8 more people died due to suffocation. And now only 19 people are left alive, but they are also buried under the snow. It takes 3 days for these people to get out of this snow. Now they realize that if they stay here, everyone will die one by one, so it is better to try to get out of this mountain and find help. Most of those people were injured, so they were not able to cross this mountain. But there were 3 people who were less injured, so those 3 decided to get out of this mountain and bring help. They took pieces of meat with them for the way and were given the thickest clothes to protect them from the cold, and 33 days after the crash on November 15th, these 3 people set out to find help. As they were walking, it started getting dark and then their eyes fell on another broken part of the plane. They saw the rear part of the plane which had broken apart. When they went near that debris, they found a lot of food in it. They decided to spend the night in it. This night was good for them in the last few days. They found a battery in that rear part of the plane. They thought, why not take this battery near the main body of the plane and turn on the communication device installed in it and call for help. But the battery weighed 25 kilograms. It was not possible to take such a heavy battery to the crash site in such a weak condition. Then they thought that they should remove that communication device from the main body of the plane and bring it near this battery and turn it on so that they can call the rescue team. For a few days they tried to restart it but were unsuccessful. 59 days after the crash, on December 11th, another avalanche occurred in which 3 more survivors were killed, leaving the number of survivors at 16. Now these 3 young men, Cain Paradu and Vicente, set out to climb the glacier without any gear. The 3 of them kept moving towards the west, but they did not know at all whether they would find any human settlement in the direction they were going or not. They just felt that they had to cross the hill in front and they would get help, and they hoped that they would cross this hill in 3 days. That is why they kept a supply of meat with them for only 3 days. They had made a silk sleeping bag out of threads, so they would climb the mountain without any gear all day, and at night they would sleep together in a single sleeping bag. Spending the night in -30 degrees Celsius in the open without any facilities was not an easy task. They kept walking till the morning of the 4th day, but the good thing was that they had reached the top of the hill. As soon as they reached the top of the hill, the ground slipped from under their feet, because after climbing the hill they came to know that the direction in which they had been walking for so many days was the wrong direction. The road ahead never ends. Because their food supply was very low, they decided that one of them would go back to the crush side and the other 2 would go ahead. So Vigent returned and Paradu and Cain San got an idea of the right path after climbing the peak of that mountain. And both of them kept moving forward for many days. And after a few days they found a small stream of river. They kept moving down along with that stream. And after walking for 9 days continuously, on December 20th, they saw 3 people on the other side of the river. They were very tired of walking. In the last 9 days, they had hiked 61 kilometers on the mountain, and now the destination was in front of them. He pleaded for their help, but they left saying tomorrow. He did not get any help that day, but the very next day the villager came back and wrapped a paper and pen in a stone and threw it on the other side of the river. Nundura picked up the pen and paper and wrote down everything that had happened. When the villager read the paper, he understood everything, because he knew that a plane had crashed in these hills a few days ago. And people had come to that area for investigation too, but he was surprised how these people were still alive. The villager went to the city as soon as possible and shared this information with the army command, and soon the air force of Chakli reached to rescue them. Army officers take Parado and Canesa to the crash site in a helicopter, and on December 22, 1972, 70 days after the crash, the remaining survivors are rescued. The condition of these people was very bad. After this crash, only 16 people were able to survive. Their story was really heart-wrenching. For more such survival stories, please write in the comments.